rushing, never forcing the issue. The veteran's patience was suffocating, a slow tightening of pressure that Toro could feel but not escape. When Toro finally landed a combination that connected cleanly, a ripple of excitement ran through the crowd, but Tapales answered back instantly, stiff jab snapping Toro's head just enough to remind him who controlled the space. By the end of the second round, Toro had not fallen, but the damage was accumulating invisibly, the kind that doesn't always show on the skin, but erodes confidence and timing. The third round marked a turning point in intelligence rather than violence, as Tapales consciously reduced the frequency of his power shots, choosing instead to establish the jab as a weapon of control, touching Toro again and again, forcing him to think instead of react. Toro continued forward, courageous but increasingly predictable, and when he leaned in too far, Tapales punished him with a clean left, snapping his head back in front of thousands of watching eyes. Still, Toro stood, stubbornly absorbing punishment that would have ended many other fights early, earning respect even as he lost ground. The fourth round belonged entirely to experience, as Tapales cut the ring expertly, denying Toro the space he needed to survive, countering sharply every time Toro attempted to engage, landing uppercuts and body shots that slowly stole breath and balance. Toro's will remained intact, but his offense faded into moments rather than sequences, while Tapales looked comfortable, almost relaxed, like a man waiting for the right door to open. By the end of the fourth, the crowd no longer wondered if Tapales was winning. They wondered only when the finish would come. Toro had proven durable, brave, and unyielding. But boxing is not kind to bravery without refinement, and the clock was beginning to feel like an enemy rather than an ally. Round 5 opened under a different atmosphere, one heavy with inevitability, as Toro's movement slowed and his punches lost the snap they carried early, while Tapales seemed to grow sharper, his timing honed by repetition and calm confidence. Every jab landed with purpose now, every counter reminding Toro that there was no safe distance left inside the ring. The Venezuelan fighter continued pressing forward, fueled by pride and instinct, yet his attacks came one at a time, while Tapales answered in pairs and threes, mixing head and body with cruel efficiency. A right hand rocked Toro's head back, followed by a left to the ribs that visibly stole air, forcing Toro to grit his teeth and nod, as if convincing himself he was still intact. The crowd, once roaring wildly, now watched with tense fascination, sensing they were witnessing the final stages of a breakdown, rather than a sudden collapse. Tapales did not chase the knockout recklessly. Instead, he applied methodical pressure, walking Toro down, cutting angles, and trapping him along the ropes, where escape options vanished. Toro's heart remained undeniable. He refused to clinch excessively, refused to quit, refused to fall, but the punishment he absorbed painted a clear picture. By the end of the fifth round, Toro's survival instincts had fully taken over. His eyes focused more on staying upright than finding victory, while Tapales waited calmly for the exact moment when resistance would finally crack. Between rounds, the replays told the real story. Tapales landing with both hands, demonstrating why he was considered a two-fisted knockout threat, not reliant on a single weapon, but capable of ending fights from anywhere. Toro's corner urged movement, urged survival, urged belief, but belief alone could not erase the reality unfolding inside the ropes. As the sixth round approached, the atmosphere in Araneta Coliseum thickened, every spectator sensing that the end was close, that they were moments away from a defining memory in this anniversary night of boxing history. The sixth round began with Toro attempting one last surge of motion, circling desperately, trying to buy time and space, but Tapales followed with calm certainty, never overstepping, never giving Toro the opening he craved. Then came the sequence that ended everything. Not sudden, not reckless, but perfectly constructed. Tapales targeted the body first, sinking a left into Toro's side, followed immediately by a right to the opposite ribs, punches designed not to impress the crowd, but to dismantle defense. Toro's guard dropped instinctively, his body reacting to pain before his mind could intervene. And in that instant of vulnerability, Tapales unleashed the finishing blow, a crushing right hand that landed flush on Toro's jaw. The effect was immediate and devastating. Toro collapsed to his knees, stunned, frozen in disbelief, the accumulated damage finally overwhelming even his formidable chin. The crowd erupted, a thunderous sound that seemed to shake the building itself as the referee began the count. Toro tried to rise, his will still fighting even as his body refused to cooperate. But the seconds passed mercilessly, each number stripping away hope. At 10, the referee waved it off, and the fight was over. Official time, 2 minutes and 31 seconds of the 6th round. Marlon Tapales had delivered a sensational knockout against one of the toughest opponents he had faced in years. As Tapales raised his arms, emotion finally cracked through his composure. Relief, validation, and hunger all mixed together. Toro, still staggered, was guided to his corner, his bravery acknowledged by respectful applause. This was not an easy victory. It was earned through patience, discipline, and a deep understanding of the craft. The replay confirmed the brilliance of the finish. Body shots lowering the guard, followed by a perfectly timed right hand. A textbook example of why Tapales remained elite. As trophies were prepared and officials gathered, one truth became undeniable. This night was not just about a win, but about a message sent to the division. In the aftermath, as Joe Frazier Jr. stepped into the ring to present the trophy, the symbolism was impossible to ignore. A living bridge between generations of warriors, honoring a performance rooted in both respect for history and hunger for the future. Tapales stood tall, sweat-drenched but smiling, surrounded by his team. The weight of expectation finally transformed into momentum. The broadcast voices reflected on the journey. Former IBF Super Bantamweight champion, now once again knocking on the door of greatness, proving that setbacks had not diminished him, only refined him. Toro, meanwhile, earned admiration despite defeat, having absorbed punishment that would have ended many others earlier. His toughness unquestionable, his courage never doubted. As highlights rolled across screens, round by round, the narrative became clearer. This was not a lucky punch, not a sudden collapse, but a carefully constructed victory born from experience, patience, and ring intelligence. Tapales had waited for the right moment, never forcing the knockout, trusting in his preparation and understanding of damage. The crowd continued to cheer long after the final bell, celebrating not just a knockout, but the performance of a true professional reclaiming his place in the conversation. In boxing, time waits for no one. But nights like this remind the world that experience, when paired with discipline, remains one of the most dangerous weapons of all. As the official announcement echoed through the arena, winner by knockout, Marlon Tapales, the sound carried more than victory. It carried reaffirmation. This was a fighter who had once reached the summit, fallen, and now stood climbing again. Not with reckless ambition, but with controlled hunger. Analysts spoke of what lay ahead, a possible title eliminator, another world championship opportunity. The sense that Tapales had timed his resurgence perfectly. His performance against Toro was not flashy for the sake of spectacle, but devastating in its precision, the kind that reminds champions why craft matters as much as courage. Toro's journey, though ending in defeat, gained him respect on foreign soil. He did not crumble, did not fold under pressure, but stood until his body finally gave in. The city of Manila, rich with boxing memory, had witnessed yet another chapter added to its storied legacy. Looking back through each round, the narrative revealed itself like a carefully written script. Early dominance, mid-fight control, and a late, emphatic finish. Tapales' counterpunching was masterful. His ability to read Toro's intentions, a reminder of years spent against world-class opposition. Toro, though limited by experience, never lacked heart, repeatedly testing Tapales' resolve and chin, forcing him to stay honest throughout the bout. The fight was not just a showcase, it was a lesson. One passed from veteran to challenger under unforgiving lights. Boxing, after all, is not always about who hits hardest, but who understands when, where, and why to strike. In the quiet moments after celebration faded, Tapales spoke with humility, acknowledging Toro's toughness, and thanking the Manila crowd for their unwavering support. He understood what this win meant. Not an ending, but a doorway. The division watched closely, promoters and champions alike taking note. A former champion had just delivered a reminder. He was still dangerous, still disciplined, still capable of ending fights decisively. The road ahead would not be easy, but nights like this build belief, not just in fans, but in the fighter himself. As the lights dimmed and the crowd slowly dispersed into the Manila night, one thing remained certain. This was not just another bout on the calendar. It was a moment of validation, a collision of ambition and experience, courage and calculation. 50 years after the original thrilla in Manila, the city once again bore witness to a fight that honored its legacy. Marlon Tapales walked away victorious, his journey far from over, while Fernando Tora, left with respect, earned the hardest way possible. In boxing, only a few nights truly matter. This was one of them. A sound that never fully stopped, even in moments of silence. At the center of this storm stood Marlon Tapales of the Philippines, a former unified world champion, now 33 years old, carrying the invisible weight of legacy and expectation. Ranked number 8 in the IBF, Tapales was not here merely to win. He was here to remind the world that his name still belonged among champions. Across the ring awaited Fernando Tora of Venezuela, a fighter with far fewer bouts, but with the kind of raw punching power that gives hope to men daring enough to believe in miracles. Tora had traveled far from home, stepping into hostile territory where every cheer was aimed against him. Yet his expression never changed. It was the look of a man who knew his role tonight was not to be favored, but to be dangerous. The broadcast voices painted the tale. Tapales, with decades of experience, road-tested across the United States, Japan, Mexico, Cambodia, and Thailand. A veteran forged in world title wars, while Tora carried the hunger of a challenger. 9 knockouts in 11 wins, power in both fists, and nothing to lose. The crowd buzzed louder as the introductions rolled, every statistic floating through the arena like prophecy. This fight was 8 rounds scheduled. But everyone inside knew schedules meant nothing once fists flew. Tapales stood calmly, loose shoulders, eyes alert, breathing steady, while Tora bounced lightly, feeding off adrenaline and instinct. As the referee called them together, the rules spoken felt ceremonial, almost unnecessary. 2 professionals, 2 southpaws, 2 paths converging under one roof. When the bell finally rang, It cut through the noise like a blade, signaling not just the start of a fight, but the beginning of a story that would test endurance, patience, courage, and inevitability. The crowd leaned forward, the lights burned brighter, and in that first second, before any punch was thrown, the truth became clear. One man was here to reclaim destiny, and the other was here to try and steal it. From the very first exchange, the contrast between the two fighters became unmistakable, as Toro charged forward with urgency, hoping to seize the moment before experience could smother him, while Tapales stayed composed, measuring distance, like a craftsman inspecting his tools. Toro threw with intent, wide arcs and heavy shoulders, looking for that single moment where power could rewrite everything. But Tapales answered with structure, tight guard, sharp footwork, subtle angles that made him a difficult target despite standing directly in front of danger. Then it happened. Tapales snapped a right jab, quick and precise, followed instantly by the left hand that had ended so many nights before, landing clean and heavy. The punch did not knock Toro down, but it did something far worse. It introduced doubt. Toro stumbled back half a step, his balance briefly betrayed, his eyes blinking as the crowd exploded. Tapales did not rush recklessly. Instead, he pressed with calculated violence, unleashing combinations that cracked against Toro's guard and face. Each punch a reminder of levels. Toro's toughness surfaced immediately. He did not fold, did not run, did not panic, but the tone of the fight had shifted. Every exchange now carried consequence. Toro attempted to answer back with power of his own, catching Tapales once, reminding everyone that danger remained real. But Tapales absorbed it calmly, resetting himself without breaking focus. The crowd sensed control in the ring, the kind that does not scream dominance, but quietly enforces it. By the end of the opening round, Toro unleashed a desperate flurry, more pride than precision, trying to steal momentum before the bell. And while it earned him a nod of respect, it did nothing to change the reality. Round 1 belonged to Marlon Tapales. Between rounds, replays showed the defining moment, that left hand landing like a warning shot from history itself, reminding viewers that this was a former champion, still capable of ending fights at will. In his corner, Tapales remained composed, barely breathing heavy, listening calmly as instructions confirmed what he already knew. Stay patient, break him down, let the fight come to you. Across the ring, Toro sat breathing deeper now, eyes alert but guarded, having already felt the difference between raw ambition and refined execution. The crowd buzzed with anticipation, sensing that the fight was unfolding exactly along the line that boxing history so often follows. The challenger testing his limits against a master still hungry enough to enforce them. As the second round unfolded, Toro made adjustments, born out of survival rather than strategy, shifting side to side, trying to disrupt the rhythm that Tapales had already established. But movement alone does not erase danger. It only delays it. Toro stopped jabbing altogether, loading up instead, looking for a single thunderous punch that could reverse the night. Yet Tapales read this immediately, using subtle head movement and that shoulder roll defense that made him difficult to strike cleanly. Each missed punch from Toro drained energy, both physical and emotional, while Tapales continued to score with small, disciplined shots, jabs, quick rights, feints. Never,